A couple of weeks ago, I did a video on all 24 teams that will compete in the upcoming 2019-20 Championship season, taking a look at where every club was 10 years ago. In the introduction to that video, I said I'd consider doing a video on every Championship club's record signing if people wanted me to. And you said you did, so I am. The Championship this season, as is so often the case, is a wonderful tapestry of former European champions and Premier League winners mixed in with teams who are playing non-league football as recently as 2014. It should come as no surprise that there are some pretty big fluctuations when it comes to record fees from team to team then, and hopefully this makes for an interesting video. Here is every Championship club's record signing. Where are they now? Barnsley, GEORGI HRISTOV and Mike SHERON. Barnsley have had much larger player sales than their rivals, particularly in recent years, with Alfie Mawson having joined Swansea City for £5 million. It is a tie between Macedonia forward GEORGI HRISTOV in 1997 and former Man City star Mike SHERON in 1999 for the Tykes. HRISTOV scored 8 goals in his debut campaign but barely featured due to injuries over the following 2 seasons. SHERON stuck around for 4 years, registering over 150 appearances before departing for Blackpool. Given both were signed 2 decades ago, the duo are unsurprisingly both now retired, although SHERON does now work as a youth coach at Blackburn Rovers. Birmingham City, JOTA. Birmingham City signed Spanish midfielder JOTA from Brentford for an undisclosed fee in 2017, but the deal was said to be a club record, narrowly exceeding the £6 million paid for giant centre-forward Nikola Zigic 7 years earlier. Following 2 seasons at St Andrews, in which JOTA has shown flashes of brilliance but has struggled for real consistency, he left for bitter rivals Aston Villa earlier this month. The transfer, which sees Gary Gardner move in the opposite direction, is also rumoured to see Birmingham City pocket £4 million. Blackburn Rovers, Andy Cole and Jordan Rhodes. It's another tie at Blackburn Rovers between 2 prolific goalscorers, albeit at different levels. Andy Cole arrived at Ewood Park in December 2001 for £8 million from Manchester United, where his opportunities have been limited by the addition of Ruud van Nistelrooy. Jordan Rhodes was brought in for the same fee more than a decade later, following a magnificent season at Huddersfield Town. Cole bagged 37 goals in 100 games for Blackburn and now works as an ambassador for Manchester United, whilst Rhodes scored 85 goals in 169 games for the club and is currently contracted to Sheffield Wednesday. Brentford, EZRI KONSA and SERGI CANOS. Brentford have done some excellent business in the transfer market over these last few years, and they've pocketed a lot of cash via the sales of players like Chris Metham, Scott Hogan and Andre Gray. Their joint record signings, believed to have been purchased for £2.5 million, arrived in 2017 and 2018 respectively. SERGI CANOS was signed from Norwich, having previously impressed on loan at Griffin Park, whilst KONSA had impressed as a young defender at Charlton Athletic. Both players are still with the Bees. Bristol City, FAMARA DIÉDHIOU. Senegal international FAMARA DIÉDHIOU is Bristol City's record signing, having joined the club for £5.3 million in June 2017. That was a lot of money for a centre-forward who hadn't been particularly prolific in the top flight of French football, but he's done pretty well since arriving at Ashton Gate. A big, powerful frontman who is strong in the air, DIÉDHIOU is still contracted to the Robins, where he scored 27 goals in 80 games. Cardiff City, Emiliano Sala. One of the most expensive signings made by any current Championship side, Cardiff City smashed their transfer record to bring in Emiliano Sala in the most recent January transfer window. The Argentine late bloomer had been prolific for 3 seasons with Nantes in Ligue 1, and it was hoped that his goals could keep the Bluebirds in the Premier League. Tragically, on January 21st, 2 days after Sala completed his medical at Cardiff, his flight from Nantes to Cardiff went missing just off Alderney. The striker's body was discovered on February 7th, confirming what had seemed inevitable following the plane's disappearance. News stories which followed suggest Cardiff are yet to pay Nantes for any of the Sala fee, with a messy legal situation likely to follow, in which case one could argue that current Besiktas midfielder Gary Medel is the club's record signing. Charlton Athletic, Jason Ewell. Charlton Athletic returned to the Championship via a dramatic last-minute playoff final win against Sunderland last season, and the Addicts' record signing dates back to their Premier League days. Versatile former Jamaican international Jason Ewell was signed for a club record £4.75 million from Wimbledon, and he spent the next 5 years at the Valley before joining Middlesbrough for just £300,000. Ewell returned to South East London in 2011 before retiring in 2012, but the 42-year-old still works for Charlton as the club's under-21 coach. Derby County, Matej Vydra. Derby County's record signing is a much more recent arrival, namely Czech Republic international Matej Vydra. Vydra has had a really up-down career which has involved 3 excellent seasons in the Championship, 2 with Watford and 1 with Derby, mixed in among some less fruitful campaigns. The former Udinese man has particularly struggled in the Premier League, and that has been the case again since the 27-year-old joined Burnley from Derby last summer. Fulham, ANDRÉ-FRANK Zambo Anguissa. The most expensive signing in this entire list, ANDRÉ-FRANK Zambo Anguissa joined Fulham in a deal worth a reported £22.8 million last summer, in the midst of a summer which saw the Cottagers splash out more than £100 million. Anguissa was one of 4 arrivals to cost the club over £15 million, arriving from Marseille with his final appearance for the Ligue 1 side coming in the Europa League final. Marseille fans reportedly couldn't believe their luck, and Anguissa had a difficult debut campaign in West London, registering just 15 league appearances as the club were relegated. Huddersfield Town, Terence Congolo. Another enormously expensive signing who joined a relegated Premier League club last summer, Huddersfield Town made Terence Congolo their record signing when they brought him after he played just 3 games for Monaco. The Netherlands international signed for an undisclosed fee believed to be around £17.5 million, which is an awfully large fee for a club of Huddersfield stature to be forking out on a defender. Congolo did manage to put in some impressive displays and endear himself to supporters at the John Smith Stadium, despite a difficult season, and they'll be hopeful the former Feyenoord man sticks out with the club this summer. Hull City, Ryan Mason. From Nick Proschwitz to Jimmy Bullard, Hull City don't have a sparkling record when it comes to big money signings. Club record signing Ryan Mason, brought to the club for a reported £13 million from Tottenham, is another who fell into that category, although through no fault of his own. The once-capped England international was just starting to get into the swing of things in East Yorkshire, having initially struggled when played out wide, when Hull City headed to Stamford Bridge for a game against Chelsea. In a clash of heads with Gary Cahill, Mason came off worse. He fractured his skull, and 13 months later, he retired on doctor's advice. The 27-year-old has coached at Tottenham and done punditry work for Sky Sports since being forced into an early retirement. Leeds United, Rio Ferdinand. Leeds United's record transfer fee paid, £18 million, and their record transfer fee received, over £30 million, came just 20 months apart and both related to the same player, Rio Ferdinand. The world-class centre-half joined Leeds in a season when the club reached a Champions League semi-final, but he was sold as the club desperately fought to stave off administration and hurtled towards relegation. Ferdinand went on to become enormously successful at Manchester United, and he is arguably the finest centre-back of the Premier League era. He retired in 2015 and now works as a pundit, although he has been linked with the director of football role at his former club Manchester United. Luton Town, Lars Elstrup. The lowest fee and both the oldest signing in this list, Luton Town's record signing takes us all the way back to 1989, predating the Premier League era, which is quite remarkable given the way in which football finances have changed in that time. The signing in question was Danish international centre-forward Lars Elstrup, who after an ineffective debut campaign scored a mightily impressive 15 goals to keep the Hatters up in his second season. Elstrup suffered from anxiety though, and increasingly homesick, he demanded a transfer back to Denmark the following summer. Despite his excellent season, Luton could only recoup less than a quarter of what they paid for the Dane when he returned to Odense. He became a hero at Euro 92, scoring the goal which put Denmark through into the knockout stages against France, as the Danes went on to win an unlikely major international trophy. From cult hero to a cult low, he joined a cult the following year, and retired from football at the age of 30. He left that group following a number of egregious incidents, such as exposing himself in a shopping centre and slapping a child, the latter of which he served prison time for. He then set up his own cult, invaded the pitch naked during a Danish Superliga game of his former club Randers, and travelled and fell in love with the nation of India. Elstrup is 56 now and has been out of the public eye for a little while, and we obviously hope, he has settled some of his demons and is living a happier life now. Middlesbrough. Britt Assombalonga. The £15 million signing of Britt Assombalonga in 2017 ended infamous flop Afonso Alves' 9-year reign as Borough's record signing. Assombalonga joined Middlesbrough from Nottingham Forest, and the prolific Congo international has scored 15 goals in each of the 2 seasons since. The 26-year-old is still at the Riverside Stadium. Millwall. Ryan Leonard. A relatively small fee in relation to most in this list, Ryan Leonard joined Millwall on a permanent transfer in the most recent January transfer window for a reported £1.5 million. The former Southend man had been on loan from Sheffield United, but the Lions were willing to make Leonard their club record signing to make the transfer a permanent one. Nottingham Forest. João Carvalho. Following the success of Ruben Neves and his Portuguese cohorts at Wolverhampton Wanderers, Nottingham Forest hopes the £13.2 million arrival of João Carvalho could have a similar effect at the City Ground. Signed from Benfica, the 22-year-old playmaker does have the potential to be an excellent footballer, and he's one of the most technically gifted players in the Championship. Preston North End. Brad Potts. It's been a long time since Preston North End competed at the top table of English football, and that is reflected in their record signing, the £1.5 million addition of Brad Potts in January 2019. Only 6 months on, the versatile former Barnsley midfielder is unsurprisingly still at Preston. Queen's Park Rangers. Christopher Samba. Queen's Park Rangers made some pretty reckless signings following their promotion to the Premier League in 2011. The last, and perhaps the strangest of them, was the mid-season arrival of Christopher Samba for £12.5 million from Anzhi in Russia. Samba had impressed in England with Blackburn for a number of years, but he did little to alleviate the Hoops' struggles. He was sold back to Anzhi 6 months later for £12 million, and the 35-year-old has been unattached since a brief spell with Aston Villa in 2018. Reading. Thiago Ilori. Reading have spent a few quid since their most recent relegation from the Premier League in 2013, and their record signing Thiago Ilori was signed during their Championship era. The Portuguese centre-back had played very little first-team football when Reading signed him for £3.75 million in January 2017, and he left exactly 2 years later for Sporting Club de Portugal for £2.2 million. Now, I'm pretty sure they actually spent £7.5 million on Sonny Aluko from Fulham, which would make him their record signing rather than Ilori. But apparently, I'm told there's no confirmation of that figure, so we have to say Ilori. Aluko plays for Beijing Ren in the Chinese Super League now for the record. Sheffield Wednesday. Jordan Rhodes. The second time Jordan Rhodes has featured in this list, the Scottish centre-forward is both Blackburn Rovers and Sheffield Wednesday's record signings. The Owls paid £8 million for Rhodes, who spent last season on loan at Norwich, and they're reportedly looking for £7 million to let him leave on a permanent this summer. Stoke City. Gianelli Mbula. A relic of Mark Hughes' poor transfer activity towards the end of his time at the Bet365 Stadium, Gianelli Mbula joined Stoke for more than £18 million in 2016, overtaking Xherdan Shaqiri as the Potters' record signing. Mbula is clearly a talent with plenty of strings to his bow, but he's one of those players who just never adjusted to the English game, and games seem to pass him by in the Premier League. He is still contracted to Stoke, but spent the last 2 seasons on loan at Toulouse and Rayo Vallecano. Swansea City. ANDRÉ-FRANK. Swansea City have received some pretty hefty transfer fees in recent times, most notably Gylfi Sigurdsson, but their record signing is Ghanaian international ANDRÉ-FRANK. That is the second time they signed him, we should point out, as just like fellow big money arrival Wilfred Bonney, the Swans have signed Ayew twice. The second time, in 2018, they paid West Ham £18 million to bring Ayew back to the Liberty Stadium. He couldn't keep the Swans afloat in the Premier League, and while still contracted to the club, he spent last season on loan at Fenerbahce. West Bromwich Albion. Oliver Burke. West Brom's record signing Oliver Burke joined the club from RB Leipzig in Germany for £15 million in 2017. Things haven't gone great in the 2 years since then, it'd be fair to say, although the Scottish international is still only 22, we should point out. Still contracted to the Baggies, Berg did little as the club were relegated in its debut campaign, and he spent last season on loan at Celtic. Wigan Athletic, Charles N'Zogbia. We have to go back more than a decade for Wigan Athletic's record signing and the final inclusion in this list, Charles N'Zogbia. A mercurial talent but obviously a gifted footballer, N'Zogbia was a good bit of business by Wigan at £7 million, given that they sold him to Aston Villa for £9.5 million. Capped twice by France, N'Zogbia's career fell apart following an injury in the summer of 2013. Aged 33, N'Zogbia hasn't played football since being released by Villa 3 years ago, with reports that he may have been forced to retire due to heart problems. So that's it for Hour 7. Thanks for watching, feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications for more from us if you enjoyed the video, and you can now also follow us on Twitter for more ramblings from me. Our username is simply @HITC Sevens.